All right, welcome. So in Christian thought, you have these two massive, absolutely central ideas. One, that God became human, and two, that this whole event somehow fixed our broken relationship with him. But the real question is, how do those two pieces actually fit together? That's the profound divine puzzle we're digging into today.
Yeah, this quote from theologian J. McLeod Campbell, it just nails this central mystery. It's kind of like a divine chicken and egg problem, right? Was the whole reason for God becoming human just so he could die for our sins, or was God joining humanity the real point, and the crucifixion was just what happens when a perfect life runs into a very broken world? That's the puzzle we're going to unpack.
Okay, so before we can even try to solve this thing, we've got to make sure we're all on the same page. We need to clearly define the pieces. What are we actually talking about with the Incarnation and the Atonement, and what's the big problem they're supposed to solve in the first place?
First up, the Incarnation. At its core, it's the belief that God became a human being in the person of Jesus. And you got to think of it not just like a temporary divine visit, but as a permanent, complete union of God and humanity, all in one person.
And then you've got the Atonement. Now, this term is all about the work Christ did to repair that broken relationship between us and God. It's all about reconciliation, and it's pretty much always linked directly to his suffering and his death on the cross.
So, why was all this even necessary? Well, the New Testament frames the fundamental human problem as sin. And it's not just a checklist of bad things you did. It's described as a state of being, a deep, fundamental separation and even hostility towards God. That is the core conflict that needs a resolution.
And this table really breaks our big puzzle down into two different ways of looking at it. Path number one, the atonement was the main event. Sin created this cosmic problem, a debt that needed a divine payment. So the Incarnation was simply the way to get that done. Path number two, the Incarnation was the main point all along. God's biggest goal was to unite with humanity, and the atonement was what happened when that perfect union crashed into the sin it found in the world.
But you have to wonder, where did all these complex ideas even come from? To get an answer, we've got to go back to the source, right? We have to look for the clues in the New Testament itself. And this brings us to a really big debate. Was this whole idea of a sacrificial death for sin something that came later? Something the apostles just kind of bolted on to make sense of what happened? Or did the idea actually come from Jesus himself? Well, if you look at the gospel accounts, the idea seems to be rooted right in Jesus' own words. He's recorded talking about his life being a ransom for many. And at the Last Supper, he specifically connects his death to the forgiveness of sins. And then, after the resurrection, the story goes that he explained to his followers how his suffering was actually necessary, a fulfillment of the scriptures. So, from the text's point of view, the concept seems to be there from the very beginning.
Okay, so let's say we accept that the New Testament teaches redemption through Christ's death. That just leads to an even tougher question. How? How exactly does the death of one person 2,000 years ago actually work to solve this problem of sin? This question, well, it has sparked centuries of intense theological debate.
Now, theologians have come up with a ton of theories, but you can kind of group them into three main buckets. First, there's the moral influence view, which says the atonement works by changing us. Second, the self-surrender view that focuses on Christ's perfect obedience for all of us. And third, what's called objective expiation, which argues the atonement actually satisfied something in God's nature, something like his justice.
Let's dig into that first one, moral influence. This theory is super powerful because it's so personal. It basically argues that the cross is the ultimate demonstration of God's love. And the idea is that when we witness such a profound, self-sacrificing act, it breaks down our own hostility and fear. It melts our hardened hearts and draws us back to him. So the main effect isn't on God, it's on us.
But here is where it gets really interesting. Horace Bushnell, one of this theory's greatest champions, made this absolutely stunning admission. After arguing for hundreds of pages about the power of moral influence, he confessed that when a person is truly, deeply crushed by their own guilt, the theory alone just doesn't bring comfort. The soul cries out for something more concrete, asking, "What is he for?" And the only answer that brings peace, he admitted, is that ancient, primal language of the altar. He is my sacrifice.
And that right there, that just perfectly captures the central tension, doesn't it? Our conscience seems to demand more than just a good example. It cries out for a real, concrete solution to the problem of guilt. And that leads us to the search for a more complete picture.
Right, so for any theory of atonement to feel truly complete, it has to balance the scales. It can't just be about how God's love changes us. It also has to address how Christ's action deals with sin itself, head-on, how it satisfies the unchanging reality of divine justice. It needs to have some kind of objective weight to it.
And this brings us to a much more complete, layered view. You see, a really robust understanding doesn't just discard the other theories, it actually integrates them. It starts with the Incarnation, bringing a whole new divine life into the human race. It builds on that with Christ's perfect obedience, the perfect human response. It absolutely includes his profound, sympathetic love that changes our hearts, but it anchors all of this in an objective foundation, an atonement that truly deals with guilt and satisfies divine justice, making forgiveness a reality.
And so we are left right back where we started, with our final question. What is redemption, really? Is it an internal moral transformation sparked by an incredible act of love? Is it an external, divine transaction that settles a cosmic debt? Or is it a profound mystery where both things are happening at once, where justice and love meet in a way we can only just begin to comprehend? That, my friends, is the divine puzzle of the atonement.